Nearly 6 years after Prince Harry and Meghan Markle walked away from senior royal life, the most revealing thing isn't what they've done, since it's how desperately the palace and its media mouthpieces still orbit them. Because if Harry and Meghan Sussex were truly irrelevant, the institution they left wouldn't still be defining itself in opposition to them. Irrelevance doesn't require rebuttal. It doesn't require leaks, and it certainly doesn't require anonymous sources working overtime to tell us how a woman is supposedly feeling behind closed doors. From the moment Harry and Meghan Sussex chose independence, the narrative was set. They would fail. They would come crawling back. They would regret it. And most importantly, they would fade. Except none of that happened. Instead, what followed was something far more destabilizing to a rigid hierarchy they adapted. They learned. They built. And while they were doing that, the palace remained exactly where it was, doing exactly what it has always done, only now without the ability to control the story. What's often overlooked is that Harry and Meghan Sussex didn't arrive in the United States with a fully formed empire or instant acceptance. They were scrutinized, tested, questioned, but instead of demanding deference, they earned trust, slowly, deliberately, through consistent messaging, charitable focus, and an approach to public life that felt human rather than rehearsed. That alone set them apart from the royal formula they left behind. And that difference is precisely why the tension never truly went away. Because the monarchy, particularly Prince William and Kate Middleton, didn't just lose two working royals, it lost contrast control. Harry and Meghan Sussex became living proof that another way was possible, and no institution that relies on obedience is comfortable with alternatives being visible. So when reports surface claiming Buckingham Palace is preparing William and Kate to challenge the Sussexes in the US, the subtext couldn't be louder if it tried. Challenge them at what? Popularity? Cultural relevance? Emotional resonance? Because those things can't be shipped overseas in a diplomatic pouch. They have to exist organically, and that's where the gap becomes painfully obvious. The idea that US officials rolling out red carpets for William and Kate somehow diminishes Meghan Sussex is almost laughable. Meghan Sussex did not leave royal life to chase ceremonial welcomes or polite applause from institutions. She left to escape a system that reduced her to optics while punishing her for visibility. The assumption that she now yearns for the very machine she rejected says more about palace thinking than it does about her. And yet the familiar script rolls out once again. Meghan Sussex is described as seething, furious, consumed with jealousy. Because, heaven forbid, a woman who has been relentlessly undermined, misrepresented and attacked might simply be unimpressed. In palace language, indifference is always translated as bitterness, especially when it comes from someone who refused to stay in her assigned place. What the media never seems willing to confront is that Meghan Sussex doesn't need to compete with William and Kate for headlines. She already commands attention simply by existing. Every move she makes is scrutinized. Every word she utters is analyzed. That level of focus doesn't come from jealousy, it comes from impact. William and Kate, on the other hand, still struggle with a perception problem that no amount of staged relatability seems to fix. Their appearances are dutiful, polished, and strangely hollow. The message is always seriousness, but the connection rarely follows. And when connection fails, the fallback is symbolism. Titles, protocol, the comfort blanket of inevitability. Kate, in particular, has been elevated into a flawless concept rather than a fully dimensional public figure. always perfect, always agreeable, always silent. The problem is that perfection doesn't inspire loyalty, it inspires distance. You can admire a mannequin, but you don't relate to it. Meghan Sussex, by contrast, has never been allowed the luxury of being distant. She is criticised for speaking, criticised for not speaking, criticised for existing loudly and quietly at the same time. That contradiction alone tells you where the real discomfort lies. And then there's Harry, still the monarchy's most inconvenient truth. A prince who served, suffered, and ultimately chose himself and his family over an institution that treated emotional honesty as rebellion. Harry's continued work with veterans, communities and causes doesn't feel performative because it isn't. It feels lived in, and that's precisely why it's framed as suspicious. Take the manufactured drama around Harry's Canada visit, coinciding with William's Earthshot event. Instead of allowing Earthshot to stand on its own merits, the narrative immediately pivots to accusation. Timing, intent, motive, as though Harry exists solely as a shadow cast over his brother's initiatives. That framing doesn't elevate William, it exposes insecurity. If William's projects were as compelling as palace sources insist, they wouldn't need protection from comparison. They wouldn't need Harry to be painted as a disruptor simply for continuing his life's work. The fact that they do speaks volumes. The truth is, Harry and Meghan Sussex didn't just leave royal life, they exposed its fragility. They showed that public respect doesn't automatically follow a crown. That relevance can't be inherited indefinitely, and that when people are given a choice between authenticity and obligation, they increasingly choose the former. That's why the Sussexes remain the gravitational centre of every royal conversation, no matter how far removed they are. Because the monarchy still hasn't found a way to tell its story without referencing the ones who walked away from it. And perhaps that's the most telling detail of all. Nearly 6 years on, Harry and Meghan Sussex are still treated as a threat not because of what they say, but because of what they represent: freedom from the script, freedom from silence, and freedom from a system that demands loyalty without offering protection. So, while William and Kate are positioned, repackaged, and reintroduced to audiences who remain politely distant, Harry and Meghan Sussex continue doing what unsettles the palace most, living visibly, speaking honestly and thriving without asking for permission. And that is not jealousy, that is power. And before you go, if you've enjoyed this deep dive and you appreciate honest conversations that don't bow to palace PR or recycled headlines, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share this video so more people can find it. Your support genuinely helps this channel grow, keeps these conversations going, and ensures we keep cutting through the noise with clarity and humour. And if you'd like to support the channel even more, there's a Buy Me a Coffee link in the description below. It's completely optional, but every coffee goes directly toward research, production, and keeping this space independent and unapologetically real. Thank you for watching, thank you for supporting, and as always, stay curious, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next one.